Good morning. Good morning. Happy Memorial Day. Happy Monday. Today's episode is gonna be a little bit shorter, probably, because I woke up, 15 minutes ago. And Leah has been sick the last couple of days. So I haven't had as much time to prep. So today's going to be a little bit shorter, a little bit different. Leah and I have been talking a lot about purpose. Good morning, Leah. Thank you for being here, even though you're sick. I love you. Leah and I have been talking a lot about purpose and finding our own direction in life, right? So, for today's episode, let's explore that for a minute. And I also want to preface by saying I've been feeling, yesterday was actually the first time since starting the show that I thought I should just stop doing the show, because I don't know, it was the first time I had that thought of I should just give up, stop doing what I'm doing. This is a waste of time for people watching, for myself. What the fuck am I even doing right now? Go get a job, you know? And I and then we did this archetype card reading, and I talked to Leah about it. And part of the reason why I've been feeling that way is because I just feel this pressure a little bit to make this be professional, polished. After every episode, I upload my transcript to ChatGPT and I ask it to give me producer notes and tell me things I can do to make the next episode better, and what I should do to help it grow. I'm getting some errors right now. It says YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. No bueno. There's something wrong with my upload speeds, so if it sounds bad right now, I'm so sorry. I really don't know what I can do about it right now, so it might just sound terrible or look terrible. It is what it is for today. Like I said, today's a bit of a different episode. So I've been feeling this pressure to make it be this professional, polished, put together, well-produced type of thing. And I think that's what a lot of people would expect from a show, especially in this day and age where you really do have to have things almost perfect in order to capture attention, maintain attention, not lose the viewers, all that good stuff. Good morning, Bailey. I'm so sad that we couldn't see you. Are you already in Michigan? Damn. I'm gonna miss you a lot, dude. Anyways, what I was saying is there's this pressure, I guess, to make this thing feel perfect. And it's all internal. It's all my own stuff. But part of the reason why I've wanted this thing to be live is because I want it to feel real and authentic and like a connection. I want it to feel like I'm sitting down with my friends in the morning before work, just chatting, talking, realizing things together, learning things together. And like I've said, I'm in the middle of healing, in the middle of recovery. I still very much struggle with depression. I don't think I've been as authentic as I probably could have been in the last couple of episodes. With talking about how I'm like currently feeling. But again, the show is evolving, and I'm slowly figuring out where I want it to be. And I just appreciate you being here for the journey. You know what it is? No, that's not Proton. I wonder what's going on with the internet. It's something with the internet. It's my upload speeds are messed up. Something's using them, but again, I don't really feel like I have the time to, or the ability to diagnose it. So I'll upload the recording. If there's buffering, I'll upload the recording today. Purpose. Let's go back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Leah has been struggling with feeling like she doesn't really know what direction she wants to go in with her life. And I think that's a really common experience. I think we all struggle with that sometimes. And my current philosophy on that is that that's kind of the point, you know? I think our bodies kind of know what we're gonna do. I think it's impossible to know what the future is gonna look like. But I like to think of humans, or like myself at least, as just a very complicated Plinko machine, where input, like the experience that I'm going through, anytime I need to make a decision, information comes in the top, and it just goes through a series of pegs, and it goes into one of the slots, deciding if I should eat out or make breakfast this morning, right? It's like all of the information that I have goes in the top, bounces around in these pegs, and it lands in the eat out or make breakfast. And if it is the make breakfast one, then it goes through and I decide like what I want to eat for breakfast. I feel like humans are pretty just complicated Plinko machines, and we're all unique. And part of finding our purpose in the world, or whatever, is learning how our Plinko machine works. I think I said to Leah that everybody's filter is unique to them. If we think about things from like a quantum perspective or a universal perspective, right? Like, we are conscious, we're aware, we're experiencing things. There's this debate in philosophy and psychology about like what even is consciousness. Like, why do we exist and think of ourselves as an I? And there's this theory that like we're just the universe creating a way of experiencing itself, which I think is potentially on track. I don't know if that's like an oversimplification of it, but I've mentioned we have this like witness observer, and I feel like kind of the point of our life is to just tell a good story to our witness observer, and obviously take into account the role that we're playing in other people's stories, and value everybody's story equally to our own. But it wouldn't be a very fun movie if you knew exactly what was going to happen, right? So it's like part of the point is figuring out as you go through life and you go through these experiences and you have certain stimuli come in, you're going to respond in a unique way. I said to Leah, if somebody created a questionnaire that had like 100 questions of just random life stuff, and you asked everybody in the world the same set of questions, nobody would have the exact same answer, because we all have like a unique filter, a unique Plinko machine, if you will. So part of the experience, part of what gives life meaning and gives ourselves, like gives us a sense of direction, is kind of witnessing how our Plinko machine ends up playing out our life, you know? And I feel like all we can really do is set an idea of maybe a destination or a goal, what we want our life to look or feel like, and then just be present in the moment and watch the Plinko machine do its thing. I'm still working on that philosophy. But I think that helps us to feel like our individual perspective and our individual, like the uniqueness of ourselves is valuable. And a sense of kind of like, well, I feel like it's important for me actually to mention determinism versus free will. When I was in college, I took a psychology 101 class, and one of the concepts that we discussed that I found like incredibly interesting was the concept of determinism versus free will. And in Mormonism, sorry, I'm playing with this like little chaos fidget spinner that Daniel got me, my good friend Daniel, and it kind of relates to the concept we're talking about today. But in Mormonism, obviously we believe that we have agency, the ability to decide what we want to do with our lives, who we want to be, make right or wrong decisions, and that's kind of like our right is as humans, is the ability to choose, and God isn't going to tell us how to live our lives. And we're basically just going through this life to figure out if we're going to make the right decisions or be the right kind of person. Similar to what I was saying, like if our Plinko machine is going to end up landing in the correct boxes for the test of eternity or whatever. And that's like a fundamental thing that I believed, was that like I have this ability to choose and make my own decisions. And determinism is the idea that if you know enough about a system or person, that you would be able to determine the outcome of any input. So I put something in the top of the Plinko machine, and because I can just do math and like determine how it's going to bounce around in there, I can tell you if it's going to land in this bucket or that bucket. And that's determinism. But chaos, which again is kind of why I like this fidget spinner so much, is the idea that very small and like seemingly inconsequential differences can cause massive changes in the way a system works. And a double pendulum is like one of the best examples of that. If you have two double pendulums that are the exact or as close to the same as you possibly can make them, and you drop them at the same time in the same place, they're going to do completely random different things because of very, very, very small differences between the two pendulums. So that's like this sense of chaos. But the idea is that if you could have a strong enough, fast enough computer with enough information about the system, that you would be able to predict everything. That's determinism. And when we learned about this in that Psych 101 class, I was just kind of like, wow, that's fascinating. Like, I kind of agree with determinism. If I knew everything about a person's life, I feel like I could predict what actions they would take. And I think the discussion that we used was like, you're in a helicopter, or like your plane crashes in the ocean and a helicopter comes to pick you up. And the helicopter can only take like 10 people, and there's 11 people floating in the water, like waiting to be saved. And the idea is, would you be able to predict if somebody would sacrifice themselves for the group? It's like some people you would assume like, yeah, that person's kind of selfish, and so using determinism you can predict like that person's probably not gonna self-sacrifice for anybody else. But people who have been raised with this sense of like sacrifice is good, or you need to consider other people, or like, I don't know, there's lots of things that can go in and input that some people would choose to stay behind and make that sacrifice so that someone else could be saved. And I actually had we kind of got in an argument with the professor, because I think obviously he's Mormon, because I went to BYU Idaho, so I think he generally sides with the sense of free will, and I think to an extent we actually have to have free will. It's like, if you look at how I think about the double split experiment a lot. Like, where if you have two slits and you send one photon or like light through the slits, that it goes through both slits, unless you observe which slit it goes through, in which case it goes through one. And so the observer influences the outcome of that system. Basically, if you don't observe which slit it goes through both. And if you do observe which slit it goes through one, because it can only go through one from our perspective. But it still goes through both. Like, scientifically, we know that light takes every possible path from point A to point B. But there's only one that we observe. And so what I feel like when we make decisions, part of it is that we're choosing what we're going to observe, what things we're going to observe. And the many worlds theory, or like multiple realities or parallel dimensions theory, which if you believe in the fourth dimension, which is real, it's almost undeniable how the universe and the world works. Then the idea is that there's a version, or there's a universe or a timeline, and I guess the current theory, they call it a world line. There's a world line in which every decision, the other option or one of the other options has been taken. So if I'm holding my hand up and I'm like randomly deciding, am I going to move my hand to the left or to the right? There's a universe in which, like right now, I decided to move to the left. There's a universe in which, or a world line in which I decided to move to the right. And to me, like, the sense of free will becomes tricky if both things are happening, right? If there's a timeline or a world line where both things happen, and really where everything happens, all possibilities are happening, then the concept of like choosing where you want to go is kind of just like, what timeline or world line are you going to observe? So how does that relate to finding your purpose? It can take a little bit of pressure off of you to feel like you have to get it right, that you only have one chance, one opportunity to live your best life. Because every time you make a decision, there's another reality where the other decision was made, the opposite choice, or one of the other infinite choices was made. So you don't have to feel like a ton of pressure. You're just kind of choosing which channel you're tuning into in the universe of all possibilities. I don't know. Is that making any sense whatsoever? The idea that if everything is happening everywhere all at the same time, everything everywhere all at once. If you've seen that movie, fantastic movie. But it's like if you put a quarter in the top of a Plinko machine and it bounces around in this incredibly complex system, and the chaos makes it land in one of the two options, there's a universe in which it took every possible path between point A and point B. And we just witness one of those. Is kind of the idea, the concept. But there is a reality where every possible path, every possible destination happens. Leah says, it does make sense, I'm just not sure if it's true or not. Yeah. So, the many worlds theory is a theory. However, I feel that it's a pretty accurate theory. I'm trying to think of so the fourth dimension is time. And there's like a fifth dimension and there's a sixth dimension. I don't know how many dimensions up it goes. When we look at things happening in a two-dimensional world, like if we're watching Mario, we're seeing like a slice of a potentially 3D world, right? So like if you had a 3D version of what you're seeing in the Mario world, and then you just took like one slice of pixels, that's the 2D world, right? So like if you took one slice of me and this experience from here to here, just in a plane, you took one slice and then you looked at it from an outside perspective, which is the third dimension, you would see like me looking at a camera, like there's a computer here, but all of this other stuff still exists. Like the third dimension still exists. And so if the fourth dimension is time, and we are on one slice of that time, all of the other, like if you expand the dimension in all directions of time, all that other stuff is there. We're just seeing one slice of it. We're experiencing one slice of time. I feel like quantum physics and quantum theory makes things super messy and weird. And the technical application of those things is kind of hard because obviously we're experiencing things in one linear timeline. And so it's like, even if other realities do exist, or other timelines or other world lines where the other decision was made, it doesn't really matter because it's like, this is the one that we're on. But to me, it gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that or believing based off of the current scientific theory, like this is something that scientifically is pretty plausible and possible. Like it's a theory that still stands despite the fact that like everybody's trying to prove it wrong, essentially. Which is what I kind of love about scientific theory, is that people are generally trying to disprove other people's theories, and the theories that stand are the ones that are hard to disprove or impossible to disprove because they're true. Whereas when we look at things from a religious perspective, it's kind of like we just made up a possible explanation, and then we're just kind of like do everything that we can to support it and make us believe it's true regardless of the evidence that we see, and there's not really an incentive to question it. It's kind of why I like science. But even if it's not true, it's comforting to me, and it feels like it has the potential to be true. Again, let's get back to purpose. So why are we here? Like if we're just witnessing one slice of the timeline, what is purpose? What is this? Like where? Okay, so there's a version of me that does everything. There's an alternate reality where every possible decision that was different has been made. Leah says, I like the no pressure approach, or Bailey says, I like the no pressure approach because there's a happy you in another dimension living with the other decisions. And then Leah says, I'm still just trying to figure out if aliens are real, lol. That's a fun one. Yeah. And I think it allows you to sort of let go of what could have been. I think a lot of times regrets that we have in life are from saying like, what if I chose the other decision? What if I did something different? And I think it's potentially comforting to know that there is a version of you that did that other thing. And you're not aware of it right now. You're not observing it because we can only see things from, like, going back to that 2D versus 3D analogy of Mario. Mario believes that he is 2D. No matter what, even if he is 3D, like when he's as a two-dimensional being, he only sees things as one slice of the 3D world because his perspective is locked. He's not able to see things from a 3D perspective. And we are three-dimensional beings. We're not really able to see things from a fourth dimensional perspective, which would allow us to see, like, the same way that we can take what looks like a 2D object, pick it up and turn it around and see all sides of a 2D object. Imagine if you could see all times of a 3D object. That would be like seeing things from a fourth dimension. You'd be able to see not only from every external, like, space perspective, but you'd be able to turn it and see that object from every time perspective. But from the perspective of the 3D object, viewing it from a 3D way, it's still only able to see like one slice of the 4D experience. And in order for us to exist on the third dimension, and obviously we know and are aware of time and we experience time, the fourth dimension has to exist. It's just that our perspective is kind of locked. And so when we think of like moving up, or like a higher consciousness, right? Like if we were to evolve and die and become like God, or like move on to another world or other side or dimension or whatever, right? Like graduating from this life, it would be like becoming aware of our consciousness from a fourth dimensional perspective. Is kind of how I think about it. So like maybe when we die, our consciousness is just sort of like locked in this 3D experience at the moment, but maybe when we die and we're no longer stuck in this slice of our 3D experience or the 4D experience, then maybe we become aware of things from a higher alternative perspective, and we're able to see that the experience that we just lived through was one slice of the infinite 4D possibilities. It kind of fits with simulation theory. Like maybe it's not a simulation, maybe we're just picking one 3D perspective to live through, and we just get to go through it. I often think about the fact that like people can do psychedelics or certain drugs and then experience or live an entire lifetime as someone else in a matter of moments, and then they like wake up or come back to this experience, this reality, and they're like, holy crap, like I just lived an entire life as Jared from Subway or something, I don't know. And it's like time is such a weird thing, and especially like as we get older, our perception of time changes, right? Like think about how long a day used to feel when you were a kid, because when you're only let's say 3,000 days old, almost 10, every day is 1/1000th of your entire life. Or I don't know, I'm struggling to do math right now because it's early in the morning. It's just like the ratio of one day compared to your entire life becomes smaller and smaller and smaller the more days that you live. And so our perception of time becomes faster and faster and faster as we get older and older and older. And one of the things that I'm trying to do in my like return to my inner child, become as a little child, right? Tuning into my eternal child is increasing like the frame rate of my experience, because you can't slow down time. You can just increase the rate at which you perceive time. So when you're a kid, you're basically always present in the moment. You don't even really have a concept of the future or the past, because you have such a small amount of time that you've experienced. You don't have like a frame of reference really. And so if you remember being a kid, it's like 30 minutes is so long. You're like, we're going to be there in 30 minutes? That's for freaking ever. That's a whole episode of Dora. My dad used to tell us, like, we're going to be there in 3 episodes of Dora when we're driving somewhere far away. And I'd be like, that's forever, Dad. 3 episodes of Dora. And now it's like, oh, that's an hour away. That's not even a big deal. Like, yeah, it's kind of annoying that I'll have to drive that long, but it's whatever. It'll pass by in the blink of an eye if I listen to a podcast, if I can distract myself and not really be present. So, yeah. Colin just said, can't slow time, but you can slow yourself. Exactly. Like, I'm trying to increase the frame rate of my experience. If I can just be more present, be more in tune with my emotions, which are the source of our memories, like, then maybe I can live a longer life. And I'm also just kind of tired of constantly thinking about, like, how am I going to retire? How am I going to manage in 10 years? Like, I want to just sit here and appreciate this life that I have. Like, the house that we live in it's got character. We have all this nature around us in our backyard. I have a beautiful wife who loves me, even though I'm not necessarily the ideal man or husband. And we have good food, we can cook, we have the opportunity to experience so many beautiful things every day, but I'm just kind of worried about if I'm going to be able to retire on time or make enough money. So, yeah, can't slow down time, but you can slow yourself. And honestly, sometimes I think about like the Christian story or the biblical story of becoming like God and living for eternity and all that stuff as a parallel, or just maybe like if you think about it, for our actual experience on life, if you live for 80 years, that's a long time. If you're fully aware and fully present for every single one of those 80 years, that's a long time. That's going to feel like an eternity. And I don't feel the need to like die and then go do that again for forever. That's like, I'm kind of like, once I get through that much time, I'm kind of done. I'm ready to just like take a break, go to sleep, never wake up again. And so I don't really feel this need to become a god. It's like I have 80 years. That's a long ass time to experience life and build something, write a story, share moments with people that I love. And if I'm not constantly worried about like what's going to happen in the next life, right? I got to make sure I'm ready for the next one. And if I just be present, then I feel like this can be my experience of godhood, my experience of like heaven, if I'm just present and I write the story that I want to write. Not exactly sure how we got to this point, but going back, anchor, purpose. How do we find our purpose? Don't stress so much about where you're going to be in the next 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, 1 year. I think our Plinko machine is a little too complicated to try and predict where we're going to go. And part of the fun is like watching the ball bounce through the Plinko machine. And part of the value is the fact that every human being's Plinko machine is different and unique because they all have their own perspectives. And it's like, even on a genetic level, if every person was born at the same exact time, in the same exact scenario, but with their genetics, they would be very different. Their experience would be very different. Their interpretation of their experience would be very different. Take five different people, put them in the exact same scenario. Some people are going to feel like, and ask them, rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. How happy were you during this experience? How miserable, how excited, how curious, how all these things, right? Every person is going to have a different response to the same experience because their Plinko machine, their interpretation, their observer, their witness observer, their self is seeing things and interpreting things based off of their story. Even on a genetic level, we are programmed to see things differently. And so why are we always trying to predict how we're going to handle future situations instead of just like allowing those situations to flow through our Plinko machine and being fascinated with like, wow, look at how I decided to handle that situation. That's such an interesting, unique perspective and way of doing things. And every time that you do something unique to yourself and you tune in to like your true self, like to me, I feel like we're born as a child. Again, the goal, become as a little child. It's basically like take all that stuff that was added onto your expectations from external sources, from your parents, from your friends, from your families, and kind of take that stuff away and get back to the purest version of your internal, your Plinko machine, and explore the things that you as a child without expectations would have explored. If you weren't told, all right, step 1, go to school, learn. Step 2, go to a different school, learn more things. Step 3, maybe go to a different school, take on a ton of debt. And then step 4, maybe get a job in that thing, or realize that when you were at that university paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for your education, you actually hated what you were doing, and so, but you're stuck there, so you have no two options: do what you wanted to do, or go back to McDonald's. Like, all of these expectations were told, this is the next step, this is the next step. The next step is for you to move out. The next step is for you to get married. The next step is for you to have kids. If we weren't always listening to other people telling us what the next step is supposed to be, what we actually do on our own, we'd probably do a very unique thing, very interesting, very different, if we could just wander around and tune in to our internal Plinko machine. We'd all live these wild, creative, fun stories and experiences. But again, there's no point in really like regretting or looking back and saying like, what if things were different? Because we're on this timeline. I'm experiencing this slice of possibilities. I can't change what's happened, but I can rest assured knowing that there is a version of myself that is doing the other things. And maybe when I die, I'll be able to see things from a better fourth dimension perspective and be like, wow, that's cool. Look at all the versions of myself that did so many different things. And there might be a version of myself that never listened to anything from anybody else, and it was just like the pure Braden worldview of an unadulterated, unaffected, unchanged, unmodified Plinko machine of genetics. My DNA unaltered, untraumatized, just kind of flowing through this life experience. And I like to think that every person's DNA, every person's internal story would tell a beautiful story and make a beautiful something. I think we're all naturally creators, creatives. You know how in English, or like when you're reading a book, they say there's no such thing as a wrong interpretation, right? I don't think there's such thing as like a wrong way of being human. Unless you're a fucking asshole. That's wrong. If you don't take into account other people's perspectives and stories and value them equally, that's wrong, in my opinion. But as long as you're just kind of like tuning in, making your decisions, some people are going to have lives where they go and they're a lawyer or a doctor or whatever form of success society thinks is like a successful life. And then you're going to have other people that go and they just kind of like are homeless. They're not tied down. They can travel wherever they want to go. They wake up every morning and they're just like, what do I want to do today? And maybe they're just worried like, I better go get some food. I don't know. Sometimes I like to think, what would life be like if I was a squirrel and I didn't have a job and it was kind of just like wake up every day and go find some nuts and then put them in a hole and then in the winter open that hole and eat those nuts. I don't know. All of this stuff, everything that we feel like we have to do every single day is just something that was made up by some dude or gal at some point, and we let it determine ourselves, just like favorites, right? Even the concept of picking favorites. We all have something that's a favorite thing, but at some point we were told you have to have a favorite thing. And we just internalize that. And we say, oh yeah, that's how the world is. I have to have kids. I have to go to school. I have to have a job. That's just the way the world is. Welcome to adulting. Follow the rules. Pay your taxes. Go to your 9 to 5. All that good stuff. It's all just fucking made up concepts. And yes, it organizes things and it gives us a society where we feel comfortable, and there's a reason these things exist, and I'm not saying they're bad simply because they exist, but I just think we should be aware of what are we doing, and are we doing it because somebody else told us this is the next step, or are we doing it because it feels authentic and real to ourselves? So as you're going it through your life, trying to figure out your purpose, just witness your Plinko machine in action. And just know that like things are gonna keep moving. Right? This like river of time that we're in, it's gonna keep flowing. I feel like today's episode was a little all over the place, but I felt like it was a fun discussion. I had absolutely no notes for today's episode. This was the most unscripted episode that we've done so far. Thank you so much, Leah, Bailey, Colin, for being here, for saying hello, for participating in the conversation. I'd love to know what your thoughts and feelings are about kind of what we discussed. If you feel like that's a hopeful way of seeing things, helpful, maybe it gives you some existential, like, wait, okay, so if everything's happening everywhere all at once, like, why does it matter if I make a decision right now? I like to think about the fact that there's a version of our existence where we have a connection to every person, every different person. I saw this video on TikTok, I think it was, about like soul contracts. Because I guess I created a new TikTok for Braden Moser in the morning, and I haven't really like used it too much. So the algorithm is still trying to learn who I am, and I've been trying to sort of tune it to be more like philosophical, introspective stuff. Leah says, I want to figure out how to get into the other dimensions. Yeah, that is something. Like, if kind of, I think about it like, again, we're on one slice of the experience. Same way that Mario is one 2D slice of the 3D model of Mario, that if he could kind of like just shift over to the left a little bit, he'd have a totally different experience, because he's experiencing a different slice of his 3D plane. This is a fun concept, actually. When I was a little kid, I looked in a mirror and I just sort of stared in this mirror for at least 20 minutes, right? And I had this theory that the reason why I couldn't go into the mirror, why I couldn't push through it, was because there was it's another reality, another dimension. Like, if you imagine that a mirror is allowing you to see into, it's like a portal to another reality, that there's just another version of me on the other side of this mirror, pushing back in the exact same pressure, in the exact same place, in the exact same space as my version of myself. And I think I kind of had this idea of a Plinko machine in my brain all the time. And so I sat there and I thought, like, maybe there's a chance that if I just move my hand left, move my hand right, move my hand left, move my hand left, like just pick a random decision every single time in my brain, maybe there's a chance that this timeline or this other version of myself will somehow get out of sync. And I'll be able to see, like, I'd be able to go through the mirror if I could get it out of sync. And so I sat there and I just kind of like moved my hand left and right for 20 minutes as a, like, I would have been, it was in Pleasant Grove, so between the ages of 8 and 12. I'm not sure exactly what age exactly, but I just sat there, like, hoping to get out of sync with my reflection. That this version of myself that's on the other side would one day would happen to choose to go the other direction as me. I felt like maybe that was like a different slice, right? If we think about it, like a different slice of the experience is happening on that mirror. And if you looked in a mirror on the other side, you know how sometimes you can take mirrors and like, if you go to like a triple mirror and you open it up and you put your head in there, you can just see like infinite versions of yourself. And it will slowly like curve or turn green or black or whatever off into the infinite distance. If every single one of those is just very, 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 very slightly different, then by the time you get to infinity, there's a version of my face that just looks crazy. And every single one of those is just like a slice of the fourth dimension. So imagine that you've got a mirror that goes like right through the middle of your body, but then there's also just like infinite mirrors going out in every direction from you, and you're seeing one slice of that experience from one perspective, but all of the other ones are happening. And yeah, we are kind of trapped on this timeline. We are kind of trapped on this dimension, unfortunately, Leah. Fortunately or unfortunately, you actually have no idea how the story ends. What if this is just the beginning and something crazy is going to happen? And what if it doesn't? If we can just be present, choose how we interpret our story, honestly, it doesn't really matter. So in your search for your purpose, for your direction, what am I going to do with my life? Who am I going to be? Find out. Why? Like, why are you trying to predict it or decide? And then when it doesn't go the way you wanted it to go, or you decided it's going to go, it causes you stress and anxiety. And find out. Put yourself in situations and just like watch how your Plinko machine decides to do things. Watch the movie. Witness the story. And like I said, yesterday was the first time I thought about like, what am I doing here? Why am I getting up at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. sitting in front of a camera and talking about myself and complaining? And am I doing anything helpful for anybody? I don't know where it's gonna go. I have no idea. But this helps me tune in to my inner child, helps me kind of give up a little bit of control. Like, some people are gonna like what I have to say, some people aren't gonna like what I have to say, but at least I'm showing up. And I'm excited to see there's like an infinite number of possibilities of what could happen next. And I'm just excited to see what happens. If you've made it this far, thank you for being here. I love you. I hope this meant something or touched some part of you, and maybe gives you a little bit of comfort that your life is gonna work out. And even if it doesn't, even if like something crazy happens, there's a version of yourself that's doing okay. And same thing with our relationships and our friendships. We're experiencing a version of existence or reality where we have connections with certain people and we don't have connections with others. I kind of feel like I want to share this. It's embarrassing. my dad's mom recently passed away. And she, like I said, I haven't really been connected to my dad's side of the family since we moved. And so I'm 26. It's been 14 years basically since we moved. And I talked to my grandma a few times. I've seen her a few times. But she's pretty active on Facebook, and she messaged me on Facebook. And I told her like I wanted to call her. This was kind of in the midst of my depression, and one of the things was that, and it still happens, I just like, for some reason I can't look at my phone. I'm just like, I can't respond to messages, I can't call anybody. I like and I sort of go dark. And I had told my grandma I was gonna call her, and then it was like a day or 2 days, and then it became a week, and then it became like a month, and this anxiety of like, I said I was gonna call her, but I still haven't called her, kept coming up. And then I found out she passed away, and it had been like two months since I said I was gonna call her and have a talk with her. And I just I allowed that like anxiety and that fear to just keep me from talking to her for too long. And I'm honestly, I'm doing it right now. I have an unread message from my aunt. She sent me her phone number, and I wanted to call her and talk to her and catch up, and I still haven't called her. And I just keep the anxiety and the fear, I keep pushing it off. But I like to think that there's a version of my reality where I did call my grandma. And I told her how much I love her. How I wish that I could have gotten to know her better. Spent more time with her. But I can't really go back. I can't change things. And I don't know for sure if there is a version of myself that did that. I just hope there is. So, while this theory exists, and maybe there is a version, you still got to take this timeline, this experience, this point of observation seriously, and do things like you're still experiencing things from your perspective, right? I don't know why I felt like I should say that, or why I wanted to even say that. Totally off topic. Again, I'm gonna probably just end it here. I love you. Thank you for being here. Happy Memorial Day. I hope you all have a great week. If you have today off of work, take time for yourself. If you don't, tell your boss that they suck. Alrighty. See you guys on Wednesday, I guess. Love you.